I just like to introduce Dr. Shyam Babu to all of you on this call. Shyam Babu is someone who's been one of our foremost scholars on diversity, discrimination, development studies. He spent years at the Rajiv Gandhi Institute and wrote prodigiously there. And since then has been at the Center for Policy Research, one of our more responsible, sensitive academics who has worked on these tough issues for a long time now. We invited him, and it was really fortunate that he agreed to write a paper for us. Dr. Mistry, another very eminent academic from Pune, she's been with us over the last couple of years on almost everything that we've worked on. So, this series of conversations on the new challenges that Muslims face beyond the citizenship debate is also includes the kind of discrimination that other marginalized communities face today. And therefore, it is important that we discuss this. And thanks to both Dr. Shyam Babu and Dr. Malika Mistry for carrying the conversation for today. What we have is that we will have Dr. Shyam Babu speak to us for about 20 minutes on his topic. Then we will have Dr. Mistry speaking for 20 minutes on the same, and then a discussion that follows. So thanks to the US India Policy Institute for initiating this series of conferences and this publication. May I now request Dr. Shyam Babu to take over.
Thank you, Amir. It's such an honor to be here. Let me try to share my screen. I have a very brief PowerPoint. Can you see my screen?
It came and went.
Can you see it now?
Not yet.
You have the hosting rights. Yeah.
I'm trying to.
There is that share. That share link at the bottom.
I'm sorry, I'm using this iPad, so I have the share content, but maybe it is called whiteboard.
Yeah, we've got it now. We've got it now. Yes.
Is there now, Amir?
It is, but it is blank. Is that intentional?
No. Okay, I think let me go do one thing. It's not really, it's enough if I see it. Sorry for this disturbance.
We can see it. We can see it, Shyam Babu. Just go to the next slide.
I will do that. You see main points?
No, we see a a slide. Yeah, go ahead.
I can simply explain. First of all, let me thank CDPP and especially Dr. Amirullah Khan, who so kindly invited me to contribute this paper on Dr. Ambedkar's conception of fraternity and how and why it is so important today. So that was my paper. So in this presentation, I'm going to make some points from my paper, but I'm going to skip one section where I talk about how Dr. Ambedkar single-handedly inserted the word fraternity into the preamble to the Constitution. There's a book on that by Akash Singh Rathod. So I won't cover that section, but let me start from what exactly are my concerns. My concerns with regard to India, whether I'm talking about social justice, inclusive policies, affirmative action, national security. Recently, I contributed a paper uh, to a volume on India's national security, where I talked about how caste is anti-Indian, is an anti-national, because it completely divides people, not into chunks. It literally slices the entire society into small slices. It is almost impossible to put together all those slices into a coherent whole as a one community. So even here also, let me start with the challenge. How a household becomes a clan or a community, how those few communities become a society, and over a large geographic area, how societies come together, sharing common values, common concerns, common threats, and all that, and become a kind of a state, they form a state, then slowly they become a nation. So my point here is in 1949, actually it's on November 25, 1949, in his final address to the Constituent Assembly, Dr. Ambedkar makes several seminal points about Indian society, Indian politics in the coming decades. A very blunt point, he says, that was the time of celebration of nationhood. We just attained independence, drafting our own constitution. Everybody was looking forward to a life of freedom, liberty. But here, Dr. Ambedkar says, let us accept the fact that we are yet to become a nation. We are not a nation. That was his point in 1949. By extending that, today I am saying the same thing. Even today, that is 2023, almost 74 years after what Dr. Ambedkar said. Today, we are not a nation because the same factors that Dr. Ambedkar used to say that India was not a nation in 49 are still in operation today. So that was my major thrust. So let me also talk about an anthropological concept, commensality, to be together at the table, whether talking with each other, discussing politics, problems of the society, or a village, or sharing a meal, having a cup of coffee. That is so central to forming a community. And if we miss the importance of commensality, it's very difficult to understand why Dr. Ambedkar said that India was not a nation then, and I insist that even today it is not a nation. And one snapshot, let me share at this point, and also a historical factoid. The snapshot is exactly 20 years ago, in 2003, in Gurgaon, I happened to meet a peace delegation from Kashmir, all-female delegation. They were going one place to another, meeting several people. So somebody invited me to one of those luncheons in Gurgaon. So while talking to one of those members, I asked her, well, I do understand national politics and I don't understand. It doesn't matter. New Delhi and Islamabad have their own compulsions, looking at Kashmir as a problem. I asked her, leave aside those national politics and international dimensions. You, as a Kashmiri, living there, bearing the brunt of all the politics and violence, insurgency, security forces inflicting violence on you, how do you deal with that on a day-to-day basis? You are not the only victim. Okay, you are a Muslim, you are a victim, but there are Hindus there. How do you talk to your neighbors in the same town or a village about these issues, and what kind of conversations you have? And she said, no, we don't have any conversations. I said, you don't meet for festivals and special occasions? She said, no. I said, why is that so? She said, it is especially about vegetarian and non-vegetarian issue. She said, Muslims have no problem to go to a Hindu household, share a meal with them or a cup of coffee, but Hindus have a problem because Muslims tend to eat meat, so they don't want to touch them. So the very concept of commensality, that you sit at a table, share a meal, or you marry into each other's households, if those two are missing, whether the unit is a village or a nation of 1.4 billion people, you are not a community. That's the most important point we should remember when we talk about fraternity. The historical factoid is, what is the basis for, what is the totem, so to speak? We have come together and become a community. Is it religion? No. Is it language? Not necessarily. Is it region? Not necessarily. I'm not saying that these three can't be the basis or a basis for nationhood. What I'm saying is, none of them is a sufficient basis to become a nation. The factoid is, for 1,000 years, Europe was known as Christendom, meaning the land of Christians. All those 1,000 years, Christians were killing Christians. They stopped that practice only after this First World War. First World War was the last war where people used religious language, religious motives to describe each other. Ditto is the case with Islam. I'm talking about these two religions because these two are global religions. If you take the very example of Pakistan, it couldn't stay together. In 1947, some British strategist said that Pakistan was a geographic absurdity. And he also said it would not last more than 25 years. In the 24th year, it collapsed. It broke into two pieces on the issue of language. So with that, let me go into some of the points I discuss in my paper. I have 4 points. I already mentioned the point 1 that Dr. Ambedkar in 1949 said that India was not yet a nation. So today I insist that India is still not a nation. My second point is, for Dr. Ambedkar, fraternity is social endosmosis. I tried my best for several years to figure out what exactly this endosmosis or osmosis is. A biological concept in biology. My social science mind could grasp a bit of that, which is, it is like a cell, and the permeability within the cell or an organism where if one part of the body feels pain, the entire body feels it. If one part of the body is whole, other parts also feel that one. So for Dr. Ambedkar, fraternity is that each one in a community, be it village or nation, if one community is suffering and in heartache, other communities would feel it and try to understand it. That is Dr. Ambedkar's conception of fraternity. My third point in this paper is, if you talk about the 3 values of the French Revolution, they're also known as the 3 creeds of democracy, democratic theory: liberty, equality, and fraternity. Without fraternity, you can't have liberty and equality. period. Why is it so? That's my fourth point, which is fraternity is society's business. When it comes to equality and liberty, state can pass a legislation, can appoint a policeman to insist that Amirullah Khan and Shyam Babu are equal. If either of them tries to discriminate the other one as unequal, the police can come into the picture and make them equal, force both of them to treat each one as equal. Similarly, liberty. I can enjoy liberty because state grants all those rights to me. If anybody violates it, I can go to Supreme Court. Theoretically, the limitations to that. But state cannot force Amirullah Khan and Shyam Babu to treat each other as brothers. That is fraternity. Frater in Latin means brothers, brotherhood. So the brotherhood thing, it's not a political concept. It's not something governments can legislate. Certainly governments can do so many things to create a kind of enabling environment where fraternity thrives. So that leads to my fourth point, which is I already mentioned. Fraternity is society's business. So from there, let me go to the next point, which is I have used a framework of 6 questions raised by an Australian scholar, Peter Sack. Let me just read all those 6 questions. He says, question number 1 is fraternity less important or less urgent than liberty and equality? 1. Number 2, is it less rewarding or more difficult to achieve? The third is very important. I'll read all the questions, but I'll focus on this third one. Does fraternity presuppose liberty and equality? Fourth, are we ideologically less committed to fraternity than to liberty and equality? Or is our social, political, legal technology inadequate or inappropriate for the task? Final, have we created institutions and processes which hinder rather than help us in our quest for fraternity? So let me focus on only one question, question number 3, which is, does fraternity presuppose liberty and equality? In other words, meaning, if you have liberty and equality, and automatically it would lead to fraternity. Actually, the situation, according to the Ambedkar conception, is the reverse. Liberty and equality presuppose fraternity. When you and me treat each other as brothers and sisters, there is a scope for the government to legislate on liberty and equality, then we automatically accept. But if we don't even accept that we are brothers and sisters, even if state legislates through its fiat, giving all the rights of liberty and equality to us, that's what happened in India, still those rights remain a mirage for us because we don't treat each other as brothers and sisters. That is the biggest problem for us. So let me go to another point. Dr. Ambedkar cites this 19th century French philosopher Ernest Renan. He talks about how race, language, or geography or religion is not a sufficient ground for nationhood. They certainly become an ingredient in nationhood. We have seen race, we have seen language, like Bangladesh came out of Pakistan just based on language, Bengali and Punjab differences. Geography is also important. Religion is certainly important. The way first partition happened in India, based on religion. But that is not a sufficient ground, according to Ernest Renan and also Dr. Ambedkar. But what are the grounds for nationhood? 1, a shared common past. with few exceptions, not too much acrimony, all groups and social communities in the country sharing a same view of their past. Is it immediate past or a distant past? Scholars can scribble about so many things, but a common conception of the past is essential. The second is the common desire to live together. These two are the real basis for nationhood in India. Now, why it becomes very difficult for us? I'm giving you example from OECD, that is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. You know, these are the club of the rich nations, richest nations. In whatever way you count it, the combined GDP of 38 OECD members is more than $50 trillion. See that, you know, India's GDP is somewhere to $2.5 trillion. We are talking about 50 to 60 trillion dollars. They are the richest and the most, we call them advanced industrial countries. Of the 38, 36 are homogeneous, meaning they have one language and one ethnicity, mostly one religion where they practice or don't practice. Only two exceptions are Canada and Switzerland. Now, the problem for India is we are a heterogeneous nation. We don't have one language, too many languages. We have many religions. And even geographically, if you see in terms of, I'm stretching it a bit, but please bear with me. The so-called agroclimatic zones are so many that the temperature or rainfall patterns or the crops produced in a particular area are entirely different from the next area. So we have this kind of very unique diversity in this country. And above everything else, we also have something called caste, which literally slices the society. So what is the way forward? I'm putting it as a very simplistic way forward as far as I am concerned. I say, don't let the political overshadow the social, meaning a sense of fraternity, the brotherhood and sisterhood has to come from the society. Civil society groups, social groups, concerned citizens trying to reach out to the people they don't like or they have differences with. Starting a conversation. That is very important. And we need to look inward and ask ourselves a few questions. In my conclusions, I think I raised 4 or 5 questions. So one of the important questions is, we as a, let us say, Dalits or Christians or Muslims have ever tried to reach out to the other community. We have significant differences. Trying to see what exactly are the differences, because there's enough evidence to suggest that we tend to have very negative stereotypes about people we only observe from a distance. When we actually commune with them, differences come down. I'm finishing in a couple of minutes. And I also say, go local, shun grand all India projects. I would say there is no contradiction between these two because they are not mutually exclusive. Civil society groups can have their own agenda, be it Hyderabad or Vijayawada or Guntur or Meerut, to have peace and understanding among communities. Educated, literate people can come together and try to understand the other group, try to narrow down the differences is the way forward. If we can make that a big movement, probably we can accomplish fraternity of Dr. Ambedkar's conception, which would take us forward. So these are some of my thoughts in the paper. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Babu. Thanks so much. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, thank you.